has been one of those weeks where I don't feel like I've been super productive until the end of the week where I look at my list of check-ins. I'm like, hey, I actually did get a lot of stuff done this week. So I'm just going to jump right into looking at changes I've made to the game recently and sort of talk through what I've done. I did a little bit more work on procedural level generation this week. I was feeling like, even though the layout of each level was feeling pretty good, I still wasn't really happy with the way that every room was being structured. So what I've done is I've introduced walls and some removal of dead ends. So you can see there are actually vertical walls that can appear now, where previously there could really only be walls at the edges of rooms. And then okay, so here you'll see there's a big block of just, empty wall space down below me. In previous builds, that would have all just been, empty walkable space. And what I'm doing now is I sort of have the option to look for paths that just lead to dead ends, and have the option to truncate those dead ends somewhere along that path. So, I can still walk a little bit over this way, but then most of it is just blocked off because the game looked at that and saw that there was nothing really useful over there. There was no reason to walk over in that direction, so it had the option to truncate that a little bit, and it did. I've also started working on putting NPCs in the game, so then come down here and we have one of the Seekers of Arcadia, so I'll talk to him, and he says all the same stuff that he would have said in Zero. I can take the Seeker Sigil from him, equip that, and it gives me a discount on the weapons he sells. I can do that, and the weapons, of course. I've just brought everything over from Zero, so those all work exactly as you would expect if you've played Zero. But yeah, so I'm starting to get things a little bit more populated. You'll see the faction vendors, the Seekers of Arcadia, there's another one of those guys, the Gunmetal Vanguard. You'll see just generic shopkeepers who sell you weapons and items, keys and stuff like that. You'll find inns where you can rest and heal for a fee. And then I'm not sure if it's going to work here yet because there's still a few bugs in this implementation, but some bosses and mini bosses should be appearing in this build. So I'm just gonna run past these guys real quick. Alright, so yeah, here we have a mini boss. It's the giant slime from the first level of Zero. You see he does the same thing. Breaks apart into a bunch of mini slimes. He's not spawning like the health refill as a reward yet, but I have all the technology that I need, I believe, to implement that, the same way that I'm doing for like dropping treasure chests from challenge rooms. I just haven't actually attempted it yet, but I don't think there should be any technical problems to solve there. So yes, it's starting to feel a little bit more correctly populated. There is a bug right now where sometimes bosses won't spawn correctly because it doesn't find a place to put them. Usually because like it chose a prefab that didn't have a spawn point specified in it. Enemies can have the same problem too, but usually just these normal combat spaces are large enough that enough opportunities do appear. And if it doesn't find a spawn opportunity for like say 1 of 3 enemies, that's fine. You probably won't notice that. But when it doesn't find a spawn opportunity for the boss, that's a bigger problem. So I will have to do a little bit more work to make sure that bosses always have a place to spawn. I think also, well, okay, so yep. So this is where the final boss should be, and didn't spawn anything here. I assume because these lava pits are here. I'm not exactly sure. I'm also not currently locking the doors when you encounter a boss. You can't just walk right past them. But that stuff will happen. Again, I think I have the technology to make that work already. So this build is actually playable. You can go on gunmetalarcadia.com and download this build today and play it. It's been a while since I've released one of these sorts of in-depth builds, but since I didn't have a written blog ready to go on Thursday, I figured I'd do that. The other thing, I'm gonna jump back in here again because I realized I forgot to talk about one other thing that I did with the game this week, which is you may notice that the levels are starting to look a little more decorative. There's there's these random blocks like this one here and this one up here, these blocks up here in the corner. What I'm doing now, and I'm not entirely happy with the implementation, but it's serving its purpose, at least in some regard. What I'm doing is in the editor, I can, if you see these tiles here, they're sort of like this grayish. These are flagged as optionally solid tiles. So whereas like all of these around in here just turn into blocks and it automatically does all the decoration to make them look like they're laid out in brick pattern. And these in the background here, it just selects background tiles for those that can, you know, take on shadowing from adjacent walls. These here, these gray blocks, it decides at runtime when it's building the level whether those should be solid walls or walkable backgrounds. So those should never be used in a way where it would, you know, potentially break the flow of a level. So for instance here, I have a ladder going up this way. I always need to leave that space open. But you know, I could bring this wall in a little bit more. So yeah, it'll look at these on a tile by tile basis and sort of look at which of its neighbors are solid versus walkable, and based on that, you know, has a higher or lower chance to become a wall or become a walkable space. So I don't know if that's going to be the implementation I ship with, but it's starting to make the levels feel, you know, a little bit less rigid, less prefabbed. So I'm happy with that much at least. There's still a lot of problems there, especially once I start looking at places where like I've sort of designed these shadows here. So I couldn't use, for instance, I couldn't use this tile over here because it would try to put these background tiles, the blue brick, down in this corner here where I really just want this all to be in shadow. So I need some different ways where I can say, okay, like, yeah, maybe I want solid walls here, have a random chance for solid walls to appear, but it also needs to respect what I'm trying to do visually with the background there. So I haven't solved those problems yet, but it's something I'm going to be thinking about. The other thing that I've been doing this week is going back to Gunmetal Arcadia 0 and doing some work for a patch, probably for whenever I do a wide release of this game later this year. So I guess I'll go ahead and just jump into the game here real quick. If you've played 0, you may have noticed that when you get to the end of the game, there's an item you can pick up that increases your New Game Plus level. So that's here where it says Chapter 5 +1. That means I'm on New Game +1. That doesn't do any, well, that hasn't done anything yet to this point, and I'm going back now and trying to figure out what that's going to do. So if I jump into the game here, this is a game that I played through once, and now I'm up to Chapter 5 on New Game +1. And all that does at this point is it increases enemies' health. So, you know, I have the best weapon in the game, but some of these guys are still taking more hits than they normally would with this weapon. I think right now this is doubling their health. I don't know if that's actually what I would want to do for real. I need to find, you know, what's the right amount of health increase to give them. They don't do more damage yet, but I'm thinking that's something I may want to do. Increase the amount of damage they do as well. Basically just, you know, find ways to incrementally make the game more challenging so that if you are playing through it a second time and you have, you know, the best weapon and you have increased, you know, bombs and sub-weapon ammo and all this stuff, that it can still be fun and challenging. And, you know, I figure I left those stubs in there for myself to do something with New Game Plus, so it makes sense that I would want to do something with that at some point. The other thing that I've been doing is I brought over the CRT simulation presets that I've been working on in the roguelike Gunmetal Arcadia. So and spin through these now. There's the Super Win presets, which is all flickery. It probably looks worse on video here than it does in person. But yeah, so that's the exact presets that were used in Super Win. There's a little bit more of the, you know, it sort of extends beyond the edges of the screen there. I've done a few others. Neon Glow here, sort of clean and crisp with a lot of bloom. Detune, sort of like a CRT that's sort of, the tint is a little bit off and it's very sort of grainy and gritty. and then you know, like a monochrome, old school like TV from the 50s or 60s. So, and then of course there are user presets as well. I just have some of these defaults saved in, but you know, you can come in here and, you know, make changes to the CRT and then save it to one of the user preset slots. So yeah, if you want to change your own settings and not have to worry about losing them, that option does exist now. And those both of those, the CRT presets and the New Game Plus stuff, that'll be coming in a patch at some point down the road whenever I do a wide release. I haven't announced a release date for that yet, but it should be, you know, before the end of the year, so you know, keep an eye out for that. And of course, everyone who already has the game through Humble Monthly will get that patch as well. But yeah, keep an eye out for that. Thanks for watching. As always, the series is supported through Patreon. I want to give a shout out to Patreon supporters Jace, Benjamin, and Opine Nana for their contributions. You can find the links to my Patreon campaign below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.